Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's call. It's September 7th. And for our Connected Roots community call, we're going to be focusing on digestion. And I'm going to try to put that into the context of a lot of the other things that we talk about. So everybody who's gone through the course has seen we go in a very specific order. We go first mindset and helping to dispel some of the myths and get people into the mindset of healing. So that can support you in the process. And just like Dr. Joe Dispenza recently posted, our own nervous system is the greatest pharmacist on the planet. So whatever we decide to focus on and think about is what our body is going to produce biochemically. So therefore, that is so critical to starting this process. And we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do to make sure that we get into the right mindset to support healthy digestion, and how that really does connect and play into all of this. So we start with mindset, and then we move to digestion. And then from there, we can allow our body to heal pretty much anything that we believe we can heal. And that's where it starts. It starts with belief. It starts with knowing that we are more than our diagnosis. We are more than years or even decades of struggling with our health. If we decide to be more and do more and to really put our minds into creating what we want, rather than focusing always on what is wrong, what is not working. And so now, that being said, none of this is to diminish that we have issues that we have to overcome. And those issues can be very challenging and very all-consuming, right? So for example, if somebody was struggling with chronic, really bad dry mouth, that can be very distracting. However, when it is not distracting us, we need to really focus. We need to really be mindful and check in and say, wow, this is great. I'm not struggling with this dry mouth or this pain or this cramping in my stomach or this bloated feeling, even if it's only for 30 seconds. We need to really zoom in on that 30 seconds and take time, appreciate, notice it, remember how it feels. And then when we sit down to meditate, even though we still have the pain, the dry mouth, or the bloating, or whatever it is, we want to try to reimagine what it felt like, that 30 seconds when we had no pain. That's all about the mindset. So if we can practice putting our attention on the thing that we want, practicing how it felt, if we've experienced it, or if we've never experienced it, what it might feel like, then we can start moving our body in that direction. Our body will start creating the chemicals needed to go in that direction. And one of the most important chemicals that we're going to talk about now in relationship to digestion is serotonin, because there's a lot of misconceptions about serotonin. Like we have SSRIs that were used to treat anxiety, depression, and disorders like that. And we think that, we need more serotonin in order to feel good mentally. But the reality is that serotonin is a stress hormone. And people who have generally kind of gotten to their wits' end with trying to deal with mental challenges have basically burned out their serotonin. And so it might look like serotonin levels are low, but it's just because they've lost this adaptive function, this stress hormone, to deal with that stress. And that same stress hormone, serotonin, also has a negative impact on digestion because it is a stress hormone. Some of the ways that we also mess with that are like by taking antacid medications, right? So drugs that like omeprazole and antacids that shut down the stomach acid in our digestion also lead to an increase in these stress hormones. And another one that triggers serotonin is histamine. And so what most people don't realize is that they can be so far along in the damage process in their gut that even though they're like, well, I don't have any pain, there is damage. And if there is damage, there's inflammation, which means there is histamine. Histamine is the body's natural response to an injury. Like if you get a paper cut, it's going to release histamine. That's why it'll get a little itchy, a little bit swollen. Okay. It's part of triggering the natural healing process. But if there's just, for some people, if there's even just the tiniest amount of histamine elevated in the digestive tract, the entire digestive tract is shut down. And so this is where the liquid reset comes in. Because if that is going on, we cannot put any stress or any irritation into the gut at all. Even the slightest amount is going to trigger an increase in that histamine and shut everything down again. And that creates then, an increase or a re-aggravation of all of the symptoms, whether it's, really bad acid reflux and GERD, or if it's further down, something like colitis, right? Doesn't matter where the body is having these negative reactions, because that just indicates how the body had been compensating for many, many years, is where we see symptoms. Okay, so that's why two people who have probably followed very similar diets and very similar lifestyles can present in very different ways in terms of their symptoms, because their bodies just figured out different ways to compensate, right? The same thing happens in our posture, right? So two people could have the same sort of injury to their spine, but compensate in very different ways. It's just a matter of the timing, the circumstances, and any number of different things that happened at that time. So ideally, we want to start people on just a kind of very simple, but still whole foods diet. It's going to be the least stressful and the easiest to accomplish this goal. But there's always going to be some people that, because of how bad their digestion is at the beginning, that's just not an option. So we want to ease into, starting with the basics of the diet and getting things much calmer, and then going for at least 3 to 5 days or so of doing all the liquids. And I developed this liquid program when I had a woman with really severe ulcerative colitis that had caused fissures in her rectum. It was so bad, she was literally afraid of eating food, of having to pass food through her digestive tract. And when we started her on the liquid program, it took several months of her eating just liquids and then slowly adding in one thing after another, starting with like white rice, and then boiled potatoes, and then boiled ground beef, right? It was this very, very slow progression. And one of the things that I've learned now that might have sped that up for her is that we didn't emphasize enough sugars in the process. And so what some people understand is that as soon as sugar enters your mouth, right, as soon as you taste sugar, it starts entering your bloodstream. And so that immediately becomes energy available to your body to use. And if you've been struggling with your digestion for many, many years, that means that if you eat foods that are harder to digest, like complex carbohydrates, grains, things like that, then it's going to be much more difficult for your body to access that energy. So we just have to go straight to the source. Fructose and straight white sugar. And that's a bit of a swear word, a 4-letter word in the health industry, but there's nothing innately harmful about sugar. If you don't eat sugar, your body's just going to make it. So why would that be a mechanism if sugar was such this incredibly harmful thing that defies logic? And in fact, for young babies that are too small to be given pain medications because they have to undergo some sort of procedure or something stressful, they give them sugar because sugar reduces stress hormones, which therefore reduces pain response. And so going back to mindset, this is all about reducing the stress hormones in the body, right? Because of that all-encompassing analogy. If you're walking through the woods, having a nice leisurely time, and you're snacking, on something delicious and healthy, and then all of a sudden you encounter a bear that's approaching and menacing, and you get very scared, your body is immediately going to switch into fight or flight, stress hormones, adrenaline. And that's going to redirect resources your body is going to say, well, okay, there's food in my stomach, but I'm not going to worry about digesting that right now because I might not survive the next 5 minutes. So it's going to redirect all the energy and resources to the peripheral systems so you can run or fight. Okay. But remember, if you have just the slightest amount of irritation because there's old injuries in your digestive tract, and then you eat something that irritates that, it triggers the same hormones. Your body will go into fight or flight. So when you're in fight or flight, you're not digesting. You're not producing strong, lubricating saliva to keep your mouth moist. And so this is where it gets really interesting. So I can speak from personal experience, is that the harder I tried to do everything right, be healthy, avoid sugar, all of the things supposed to do, the harder it was for me to feel hydrated. And then, I think, oh, geez, everybody says you should drink a gallon of water every day anyways. But that was never even enough. And then I would wake up in the middle of the night, dry mouth, try chugging water, waking up to pee several times a night. And literally what I was actually doing was just flushing out whatever minerals and nutrients my body was trying to hang on to. And as soon as I started adding in sugar, and one of my secret weapons is, especially early on in this process is, and this might be really helpful for you, Jane, is keep a little sip of orange juice next to your bed. Or something similar, maybe something less acidic, depending on your stomach, right? Because that might not work if you have like bad reflux, but maybe apple juice could work or coconut water, but something with a little bit of fructose in it. And you just take one little sip and swish it around in your mouth, because then remember, the sugar is going to absorb in your mouth. That's going to bring your blood sugar up, and that's going to reduce any stress hormones that might have been triggered because your blood sugar dropped overnight, which would then create dry mouth and a lot of other symptoms. Okay. And so literally it's that simple. So sometimes with chronic digestive issues, it can be a matter of just always having a beverage that has sugar in it on hand all the time, and just sipping, swishing around in the mouth. 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, sip it, swish it around. 10 minutes later, swish it around. Constantly keeping your blood sugar up. It's not going to, put you into diabetes mode, right? Because we're not doing all of the other things wrong that would cause that. Because diabetes isn't caused by sugar. And in fact, up until about 100 years ago, diabetes was known as a wasting disease. It was a disease of kidney failure. And for people who were dying from it, they would actually just give them straight up water with sugar, plain white sugar. They would just give them sugar all day long, several ounces of sugar all day. And eventually, because that would keep their blood sugar up and the energy their body needed, it would allow them to heal. They could actually bring people out of diabetic comas and terminal diabetes, kidney failure with sugar. And so we have to get away from this idea that sugar is bad, because especially if we have done dieting in the past where we've eaten all sugar-free stuff and then fat-free, we've made this situation worse. We've challenged our body's ability to handle the process the sugar. And when we see elevated serotonin, and then sometimes that goes along with elevated blood pressure, that's part of what's being triggered there is dysregulation of sodium, right? And so one of the other things that we really want to include in part of the healing process is good sources of sodium, good salts, not the pink kind, because that has iron, oxidized iron, but good white or gray sea salt. We like Celtic sea salt. Our friends here in Asheville actually run that company, and they do thorough testing for heavy metals constantly. So we know it's a very high quality product with very stringent quality control. And so back to, how do we get a digestion that was in crisis into a functional place? Sugar, sodium, two of the most critical things. So drinking broth, drinking tea with honey, and then focusing on proteins that are essentially already digested. So that's collagen and gelatin. There's no work for your digestion to do. So you eat it, it just has to pass through and be absorbed. There's nothing to cause irritation. There's nothing to cause stress. Does it work instantly? No. Especially if we're still struggling with some of the mental beliefs, the fears, and just the fact that we've been struggling with this for so long. It can be difficult to really step into allowing the body to heal. So Rachel is going to share some of the mindset stuff that we can do to help us get into a good place, to get out of stress, to make sure that when we do eat, we're not accidentally triggering stress that would make something very healthy into a problem. So I'll pass that on to you, Rachel.
So what I will call this is rituals to aid in digestion. And so what it essentially is we're trying to remain out of that fight or flight response, and we're trying to, you know, allow ourselves to be in a place that's not stressed, allow ourselves to be in a place that is calm and ready to digest. So, some of the things that we suggest to people to do are to set the for yourself for your meal time, for any time that you're going to be eating, to make sure that you are going into that in a relaxed state, as in this is a time to digest, say a little prayer beforehand, sit down, um, turn the TV off, put your phone away, whatever it is that you need to do to allow yourself to not be stressed and not to be thinking about what's on the news or thinking about what so and so said to you on your phone, whatever it may be, and to really focus on digesting your food in a way that is calm and not stressful for your body. So, like I said, set some guidelines for what mealtime will look like for you, for yourself, whether that's with another person or other, um or if that's even solo eating, you should be, setting your intention for what mealtime really should be about. And mealtime should be calm, it should be focused on absorbing nutrients, it should be focused on, making, allowing your mouth to produce the saliva and to allow your body to get into that state that's going to not distract it from the important process of digestion. So make sure to set, like I said, set the ground rules. So I'm going to turn off the TV. I'm going to put my phone away. I'm going to say a prayer. I'm going to light a candle. I'm going to do these steps, and I'm going to be thankful for my food. I'm going to do whatever it is. And then I'm going to sit and I'm going to enjoy my meal, and I'm going to chew, and I'm going to focus on chewing. Um, a friend of ours was here this weekend. He's like, Milo, you need to chew your food like 20 times before you swallow it. For a toddler, that's hilarious and not going to happen. But in general, the idea is to chew, and to be mindful about your chewing. We actually just checked out a book on mindfulness from the library for Milo, and it talks about like being mindful about eating, and like how does the food feel in your mouth, and how does it taste, and like, just teaching that mindfulness around eating too. So then, and then once you've finished eating, don't just jump up from the table and like, bah, like, whatever it is that like, got to do the dishes, got to run out the door, all of those kind of things. Try to give your body some time to like ease back into doing things that are not digestion. I know that no one besides Eric and I on the call have children, but have children in their home right now, that live in their homes right now. But the idea is, we constantly, have kids in the afternoons after school. They're like coming home, they're like, shove some food in your mouth and like run out the door to soccer practice and all of those kind of things. And those aren't conducive to setting children up or anyone up for healthy digestion. So we got to be mindful of, not playing that overstimulated game of like, sit down, eat, jump up, run out, like, and doing all of those things over and over again. So, does anyone have any other rituals or any other thoughts on what they could be doing or what they would like to be doing that would aid in setting ritual for digestion?
Yeah, I mean, since COVID, well, I don't even want to call it by that, but ever since this health, I guess, crisis, my digestion really took a dive, and oh my gosh, I really, this is like a big message. This is like, thank you gift, like, okay, that thank you, my body is like telling me like, you gotta be Eric, what are you doing with your food? And so like now it's just like really intentional. Like I take the bowl of, I just started back again to eating broth and just holding the broth in my hands and feeling that warmth and like, this is really good. Thank you for this beautiful food. And it's almost like I'm doing Reiki on the food. It's like feeling the warmth of the food and like intentionally like putting like this amazing energy into the food and saying, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want from you, food. I want, please nourish me and heal me in these most amazing ways that I know you can, and help me this potential of all this nourishment that will be good for me. And actually, and then all those that you said sounds really good to like, because I have tendency of like, okay, I'm I gotta, after I eat, I gotta do this and that, and it's like, no. Yeah, and it's like goes back to the power of now. And he says basically do what you're doing when you're doing it. It's like you're drinking juice. I mean, really drink the juice if you're eating. Just pay attention to that and put all your energy into what you're doing with that, and your suggestions of like really chewing that. It's like, oh, well, how does this taste? Because just one thought, can take you away from that. And then you're just chewing, and you're just chewing on autopilot. You're not really eating. You're not really digesting, and you're just like funneling it in there. And how can you expect good results when you're not really paying attention to that?
Yeah.
If that helps.
Yeah, exactly. And like you were saying, even with, I know that Jane's probably going to be doing a little bit of a liquid diet for a little while. So even with liquid diet, like liquids to like or a cup of tea or your coffee, whatever it is, to, be mindful and grateful for the
Swish it around in your
nourishment.
mouth and
Yeah.
absorb it. Yeah, it's like, oh, because when I was on, I didn't do that enough when I was on the, I had so much anxiety, I had so much anxiety that I wasn't getting enough. And like, oh, well, that is, that's part of why I was, not digesting, because I had all this anxiety, and anxiety then was like, this is not, I need more than this. This is not going to be enough. And that's a lot of what that was. And yeah, and there's fear.
Yeah.
And so
And then that
looking
messes
back
up.
on that.
And then that messes up all kinds of different regulatory processes. And one of the most fundamental ones is the balancing of sodium with other minerals like potassium, calcium. And when that's been broken and out of whack for really long, you start to see things like the chronic dry mouth, right? And then we start to see how this plays out in other places, right? Where you see people on certain medications, complaining about the chronic dry mouth, and then talk to your doctor if this medication to help with your chronic dry mouth will from your other medications is right for you, right? So that's the slippery slope that we're going down. And then what we start to see is that, and this is actually something that as I'm going to be going through and making more revisions, is that, for a lot of people at the beginning of this process, you almost want to just not drink water. Only drink tea, only drink juice, only drink coconut water, only drink milk, only drink liquids that have, come out of a fruit or an udder. And there's an important reason for that, is that making sure that you're not just drinking water that's going to maybe flush some of the important minerals out of your system, or dilute your digestion, whereas foods that have sugar, and if you've maybe add protein to that, are going to stimulate and trigger your digestion and help support it. So that's another thing that we want to look at. And then eventually you'll find, which is, it's mind blowing to me, where I go for a day and I'm like, I really didn't drink much water today, but I had my coconut and OJ in the morning, and I had my coffee with milk in it, and I had a little bit of tea, and I had some more OJ, and I had fruit, but I don't feel thirsty, and I don't have the chronic dry, itchy scalp and skin like I used to. Or I used to literally, I would get out of the shower and it would look like my skin was just peeling off constantly, because that's something that's about how the body is regulating blood sugar and minerals. And when that gets out of balance, you feel thirsty all the time. So diabetics they complain about the thirst. And then we talk about, they try to pin diabetes as a blood sugar disease, but it's actually a kidney and mineral dysregulation. All right. So bringing it back around full circle, is that, yeah, we need mindfulness. We need to be very deliberate. And one of the amazing gifts of this process, and, I went through the same thing when I was figuring this stuff out and was still struggling with how to get my digestion working, even though I'd made all these changes. I did liquids for many, many days. And then I would mess it up because I didn't have all this stuff figured out. And I'd go back onto liquids to get back to square one until I started really figuring this stuff out. And now I can be very consistent and not have to go back and, keep backtracking. So, the gift of having to start wherever we're starting is we get to infuse it with that mindfulness where we say, oh, wow, yeah, I'm doing just liquids and maybe some white rice and maybe applesauce is like all my system can tolerate right now. So I'm going to really appreciate what I can tolerate that doesn't upset my system and cause me serious discomfort, and be grateful that, wow, I've figured out how to do that. And then when you do add something else in, something that you haven't had in a while, like ice cream or something, you go, wow, this is amazing, right? It infuses that whole new level of mindfulness and enthusiasm. But focusing on what really matters, which is the results that we want. We want to feel good. And so if at the beginning, that's very restrictive in terms of what we can consume and still feel good, okay, then we focus on appreciating that we feel good finally, and then go from there. So, was there anything else that you wanted to add to that, Rachel? Was there like an exercise or something?
No,
Okay.
I didn't have it.
Okay, great. All right. So I'll just open it up to a little bit of Q&A. If Wendy or Jane want to share anything or ask anything.
Well, right now, the mindset, it's so hard because of, like you said, you're telling me to eat sugar, sugar, sugar. And like you said, that's all I've done all my life is try to stay away from the sugar because I've been an up and down yo-yo all my life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to even drink those juices with the sugar. And I go, oh, 32 grams of sugar. And I go, oh my God, and because don't forget, I still want to lose a little weight on this, but I think I'm going to on this liquid diet.
Mm-hmm.
But
oh yes, and let me just interject. When you're doing the liquid diet, mostly the weight you're going to lose has nothing to do with sugar. It has to do with the sodium. It has to do with the body releasing all of the fluid that's built up in the places you don't want fluid.
Wow.
Yeah. And so literally you're going to pee out several
I've been
pounds.
peeing.
Yeah, good. That's a very good sign.
Yeah. So, okay, liquid, it confuses me, but your liquid diet is my broth, and I know that. And I can have, if it's okay, if they agree with me, the juices with the sugar. And of course, I'm going to put my collagen in there and everything. Okay. And you said a little bit of rice, a little bit, not even.
Start with a little bit, and then
and nothing
if that's
else.
okay, then try a little more the next time, and then see where your limits are. Yeah, and applesauce. Applesauce, again, you can also stir in a little bit of collagen protein into that.
Yes, I do. When I was eating, I didn't think I was going to be eating that right now, but whatever.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
really just
and then
liquids.
And you could try some full fat plain yogurt, and see how that feels. Just let it get to room temperature so it's not ice cold.
Oh, did you say full fat, like a whole milk type of yogurt? Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, grass fed.
Yeah, that I do know.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you're saying to put a little juice by my nightstand, and that will like, I always get up to go to the bathroom, so take a little sip. That will help with the dry mouth.
That'll help with the dry mouth, and it'll help with you not having to get up and pee so much.
It will.
Yeah. Now,
and you know how much water I drink.
Right. Well, that's what we're trying to cut you off. We're trying to cut you off.
So you
right?
don't
Because
really
that's
want me to drink a lot of water.
Right. That's what everybody says, and look where that's getting everybody. Right. Yeah. Because it's not a lack of water. It's not dehydration. It's poor regulation.
So if I want something to drink, have a juice or have broth or whatever. That's what I.
Yes. And if you're finding that you're struggling, like if you can't find a juice or anything that doesn't trigger your reflux, then you need literally just warm water with a little bit of honey or just plain white sugar in it. If that's all you can tolerate, then that's what you have.
I'm going to be a skeleton by the time I'm dead here.
Well, the goal is that you pee out a few pounds and you get your body back into some sort of balance and regulation. And then you start, and what you're going to see is that very quickly, once you change it, once you shift that balance, that all of a sudden the proton pump, right? They call it PPIs, a proton pump inhibitor that's preventing you from producing stomach acid. That'll actually restart.
Wow.
Okay, because that needs energy, that needs mineral balance, it needs magnesium, it needs all the right things in the right place. And if your body is just right, just overloaded, and then you're constantly flushing everything with all of this water all the time, it never gets back into balance.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So the baths with the magnesium, right? Really, really helpful. If you're not tolerating coconut water very well, then use cream of tartar for potassium.
Cream of tartar. What
Mm-hmm.
the powder stuff? You just throw it in there.
Yep. Just put a little.
Salty also.
What's that?
Is it salty or anything that has?
It's a little bit. Yeah, it's a salt substitute. It tastes salty. It's potassium.
Okay.
So you can just put a tiny little bit.
I can have it with other stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do it with the juice, and then I also use, and I've got myself some of that aloe stuff.
Yeah. And it's important to note, like, this is important stuff for like, oh no, I don't feel good. Right? Like, I've come down with something, and I've got a sore throat, I've got a headache, I've got sinus issues, I'm having diarrhea, I'm vomiting, I'm sick, something's wrong with me.
So that could just be your body getting rid of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So we do the same thing, reintroduce these liquids, right? Help get the body back into balance without stressing it.
You know how I told you I thought my lungs were clearing up because I have so much stuff coming up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, also what's happening is, and like I thought I was sick because I'm coughing and coughing and coughing a lot. I know that's part of my, the reflux thing because I'm not on my pills anymore. But coughing, and that's all I do is cough up phlegm.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's all part of that, getting rid of all that junk in my lungs and everything.
Yeah, calcification happens in the lungs, and so what they found is that like they can look at calcification in the lungs as a direct predictor of if somebody's going to have like chronic pneumonia and chronic lung issues like that, because calcium, iron, when those are dysregulated, out of whack, they basically act as the substrate, like the scaffolding for infections. All right. And so as you're starting to break that stuff up, right, you're starting to rebalance the minerals in your lungs, in your heart, everywhere in your body. You're going to start breaking up a lot of stuff that, they call biofilm and, sludge.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is why I emphasize doing breathing exercises like Wim Hof method.
What's that again?
The Wim Hof method.
There's a great app, I have now, and I've gotten up to like holding my breath for like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yep.
Using this app because it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's WIM.
Wait a minute. Oh.
WIM.
WIN.
M as in Mary.
Oh, M.
Yep. HOF.
HOF.
Yeah. This guy, the Iceman. Okay.
You are stronger.
Yeah.
Than you think you are.
And so
the Wim Hof method. Oh, Wim Hof. Oh, method.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have a great app. If you have a smartphone, you can go to whatever store and download it onto your phone, and that'll help you a whole lot. There's like videos and stuff right on that thing.
Yeah, I recommend starting with the free mini class. It's 3 lessons, 25 minutes. Yep.
That looks pretty good.
And you just lay down and you do the breathing exercise. And if you're consistent doing it every day, it changes your physiology. And this
Very
relates
similar.
back to digestion, because this is about changing your body's relationship to stress so that our minds stop getting us into that stress loop
Yeah, I
so
get
quickly.
stressed very easily.
Yes,
Yeah.
we all do. So we have to practice and practice and practice so that we don't keep getting caught in that loop.
Okay, that's
All right.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's has a lot to do with this. I mean, he talks about, the right and wrong, says this is really about learning how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
mhm.
It's not a competition, and so many people are like, oh, yeah, I do it. But you start
Yeah.
doing it, you really learn how, what's going on with the body. And it's like, oh, I'm not so freaked out anymore. It's like,
Mhm.
my body's tingling. And
Well, it'll be interesting. I'll look
Yeah.
into it.
And then, I can tell a quick story, just in the past week, that first Sarah was really sick with this upper respiratory thing. And then Milo had it for a couple of days, and then Rachel had it. And then I thought, oh, okay, I'm definitely next in line. And we went camping over the weekend, and on Saturday evening, I was like, oh man, I'm sure I'm going to get it. I started feeling a headache and just a little bit tired. And so after dinner, while the kids were playing and the other dads were hanging out, I just went in the tent and laid down, and I did a round of Wim Hof breathing. And it just never came on. I never got sick. And I literally think that's, in addition to everything else that I do and taking care of myself, that I think that's what made the difference.
Wow.
I don't know what else it could have been. I mean, Rachel, right? How sick was everybody? I'm not sick.
yeah, I want to thank you, Eric, for I was feeling really bad. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is coming back again. And I messaged Eric, like, what am I gonna do here? And he said, okay, here's your two options. Listen to what's her name again?
Esther Hicks.
Esther Hicks. Either listen to Esther Hicks, what she has to say, or go get some ivermectin. I said, well, let's see what she has to say. I was like, wow, and I popped myself up, and it's like, no, this is how I want to feel. This is what I want to do, and then took myself, even though the night before I couldn't sleep, went down to the beach. It's like, no, I'm going swimming. I did a Wim Hof, and I ran on the beach, and it's like, no, I can't go swimming. I'm sick. No, I went swimming. And it's like, it's like, and really you have to put your foot down and, really, what do you want to create? What do you want to have? It's just like,
mind over matter.
So important.
Mind over matter. And I mean, there's a reason that is such a prolific saying in our culture. But people know it, people say it, they don't believe it.
No.
They wait for the evidence. They wait for evidence. But the reality is that you have to create the evidence.
No, that's
so if
exactly
we want,
she was saying in that thing. It's like, no, you're still attached to it. You're still attached to it. It's like, no, but I don't think I am. But it's like, no, it's like, because you're looking for evidence that the sickness is still there. It's like, am I still sick? Am I still sick?
Yeah. So when it comes to health, we have to remind ourselves that if we desire to be well, then we have the ability to be well, or we would not desire it.
Yeah.
Anything that we desire is accessible and is possible for us, right? And if you want to see, how that plays out, look at somebody like Elon Musk, right? Who was sleeping on his friend's couch when PayPal had its IPO for billions of dollars. All right. that you can think of millions of stories. If you've ever watched that movie, The Secret, there's a woman they interview in there, and she says, I was given a terminal diagnosis of cancer. And I said, I don't want to do treatments. I'm going to go home and I'm going to figure this out on my own. And her husband just decided, all right, well, whatever time we have left, we're just going to be happy. So they did nothing but things that they enjoyed, things that they loved. They watched nothing but funny movies. And 2 months later, she went back into the doctors and she had no cancer.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it always comes back down to if we're not getting the results that we want in our health, in our finances, in our relationships, whatever it is, then we have to stop and ask ourselves, where are we out of alignment with who we really want to be and what we really want to be doing? Okay. And so then again, full circle, the first thing I said, if we're going to fix anything, we have to start with our mindset.
Yeah.
Get our head straight and say, hey, you know what? I know that this thing is bothering me about my health. However, I just realized something that's easier for me to fix is this thing that's bothering me. I'm going to fix this thing that's bothering me. I'm going to stop letting this happen. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, geez, I got rid of that. And I replaced it with something I do love. And I feel better. Right? That's why we can call somebody a pain in my ass, right? Because they literally are causing me pain. Right? Or you get nervous, right? Oh, I got butterflies in my stomach. We have to really see that what we think creates what we feel.
Yeah.
And if we're not living the experience that creates the feelings that we want, we need to start making some changes, right? And so it doesn't matter where we are in life. It doesn't matter what our circumstances are. Step one is just believing that we can change things. And step two is believing that we deserve to be happy, and that the changes that we're going to make are going to bring us more happiness, or we're not going to make those changes, right? One of the things just since you brought up Esther Hicks, and I mean, she's just so wonderful, but one of the things she says is that most people think, oh, I got to work harder, I've got to sacrifice my happiness in order to get these things that are going to make me happy. And it's like, well, then why did you sacrifice your happiness in the first place? You don't have to do that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So especially if that pain in my ass is flaring up, I'm not gonna sit down and start doing work that I don't really feel excited to do. I'm gonna go and do something that does bring me joy, right? So if I'm frustrated with work, I don't try to work harder. I go and make goo-goo noises at my baby. I don't focus on the problem. Take your attention off of it, right? So if you're sitting there and you're struggling with heartburn, don't focus on the heartburn and wondering what you should eat. Go outside and look at the birds.
Flowers.
Yeah, flowers.
Yeah.
Do
It's
something
hard
else.
though when it's burning like hell.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Hmm.
And I'm, I will never take that away from you, because it's up to you to decide where to put the energy and the focus and the attention in a way that actually does distract you away enough from the problem that the problem disappears, right? We've all had those moments where maybe we were struggling with something that was physically painful, but we got so caught up in something else that we really loved, that really took our attention, that we forgot that our knee hurt because we were playing with our grandkid, right? It's just an example, something like that.
Yeah.
So we have to look for those things and find more and more and more of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Where attention goes, energy flows.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I was another great example from my own experience was when I was still struggling with these chronic sinus infections. They were so blindingly painful. And I had to find outlets, things that took my attention away. And it was amazing how like I would go into work and I loved doing, ABC work and working with clients. I loved it so much. It got me so jazzed up and so laser focused that I could walk into that setting and it was like the pain and the pressure would just disappear for a little while until I started to think about it again. And that would happen over and over and over again. I had so many experiences with that I, and I would listen to somebody like Esther Hicks or Joe Dispenza or, any number of people teaching this same concept. And I would say, wow, you know what? I really am experiencing that. Maybe it is true. Maybe I really want it to be true. Okay, it's true. It's true. I can change my mind and I can change my world, my reality. And so then it comes back down to saying, okay, well, if somebody told me that there's something wrong with me, and only they have a way to fix it. They have to do something to me and I'm dependent on them to do it to me to fix this problem. It's going to be really difficult for me to believe that I could change anything here to change anything here.
Yeah. I've
So we
always
have
had
to-
problems with that.
Yeah.
I don't always believe what I think, and
Right.
I tend to be a negative person, unfortunately. And so that positive thinking is a challenge.
Yep. And, it's amazing, this little book. So another great teacher teaching this same concept is
body.
Louise Hay. Okay. So what does she say about,
Reflux?
yeah. Let's see. I think she calls it indigestion.
No, I think she just calls it acid reflux.
Does she?
Acid reflux, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I think it's under stomach though, because they have like subtitles.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's just trying to remember where it is. Thank you.
I was just thinking.
I had a lot of acid reflux with this past baby, so I get.
So stomach problems, including gastritis, heartburn, peptic ulcer, and ulcers. Dread, fear of the new, inability to assimilate the new. And then the mantra is, life agrees with me. I assimilate the new every moment of every day. All is well.
all is well.
All is well. Right? And now, doesn't that fit with what I was talking about, right? If you think there's impending doom,
yeah, it's coming.
Your digestion isn't going to work, right? The world is ending. Don't stop and have a hamburger.
Who cares about your digestion then, right?
Right. So it all comes back to the mindset. So something that will help you is that when you sit down to eat and say, wow, thank you. I'm going to assimilate this new food into my body. All is well. All is well. And if you have to, really stop and look around and remind yourself. Look for the evidence that all is well.
Yeah, I do, meditation in the mornings and stuff, and I try to be very thankful for what I have, and so I do have that also.
Yeah.
Besides, my negativism, but
right. So now, right before you eat.
Yeah, I'll say a little something.
All is well.
Okay.
Great.
And I do through this whole process now. I don't know how long I've been. I don't even keep track of if it's 3 weeks or a month, but I don't allow myself to go negative. Like, okay, now I'm just going to drink. Well, I don't allow my brain to go further and further, like, or even with food. When I go into the store, I don't even look at those other foods right now. That's one thing I am doing, which is really helping me.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so,
because it could be difficult.
You're moving further along in the process to, right now you're just focusing on avoiding the negative thoughts, but, pretty soon you'll be focusing on creating more and more of the positive thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. That's when we start moving into creation, right? If we're only avoiding, we're not creating.
No.
And once we
James,
make that shift.
Yes.
one thing you might want to do instead of like putting up blinders and like I can't eat that stuff, you know, it's like it's called maybe intentioning or future visioning, that you actually look at the food and say, oh, look at this beautiful food. This is what, you know, this is what I'm going to be able to eat when I go through this, you know, and like see the road ahead, that it's
That's not like
bright.
never.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm never going to be able to
Yeah.
eat something
And then,
good
you know,
in my
like
life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a matter of, again, it comes right back. Thank you, Eric, just to say like, okay,
Yeah, that is Eric.
I can imagine where this is going, where this is headed. And then that helps me to be present.
Mm.
So I don't want to go any longer. This has been really great. I hope this was helpful. And I think that this recording is also going to be very helpful for a lot of people.
Good.
So appreciate everybody being here and sharing. And we'll have a recording up soon. And I'm also, we're going to be going back through some of the recent calls and taking some shorter segments for some highlight reels. So those will be really nice too. All right, everybody.
I just have one, and it's